Live. We'll start with Fran's item. Okay. Welcome to the special board meeting of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside for Monday, September 26th. All rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. May I have a roll call session?
Director Reddick?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Warren?
Present.
Director Penrose?
Here.
You have a chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So item 2 is public comment, and I don't see any members of the public who wish to address the board, so we will convene in closed session. And we are going to hear items A, conference with district's labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. District's designated representatives from Buchanan, Aida, Beverly Marshall, General Manager, Employee Organization IUOE, Stationary Local Number 39. And item 3B, public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code 54957, titled General Manager. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to convene an open session, and I'd like to report out on item 3A that we will be discussing this in open session under item 6A. And for item 3B, public employee performance evaluation, there is nothing to report at this time. And so we are going to adjourn the special meeting. And we're going to adjourn it or continue? Do I have to report that we're going to continue it, actually?
Well, you've adjourned it, that's ambiguous. It could continue at the end, so it'll be adjourned until
Okay.
after the regular meetings, I think what you
Okay. So let me
have
just
intended to
clarify.
say, and
Yeah.
now we're about to say.
That's what she said.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, so item 3B will be actually continued until, we will reconvene in closed session after the regular meeting to discuss item 3B. That's what I'm saying. All right. So we're now calling to order the regular board meeting of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside. And I guess we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance again before roll call. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And could we have a roll call for the regular meeting, please?
Director Reddick?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
Director Warren?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Boyd?
Here.
Okay, so.
Penrose. Yeah. Director Penrose? Here. Thank you.
So, thank you. So item number 2, report out on closed session of August 22nd. I don't recall that we had anything to report out from that meeting. So there's nothing to report from that August 22nd meeting. Item 3, public comment. Are there members of the public that would like to address the board?
Hi.
Please rise and state your name.
Stand up right now. Oh, my goodness. Now we have Mike. Hi, good evening. My name is Sonia Ondish. I have been a resident of Montera for going on 13 years. I also have just recently started as an operator in training at SAM. Yes, it was wonderful. It's so exciting. Not only, I went to the city council meeting last Monday and just really didn't, I paid attention to water, but not as much as, of course, as I'm doing now. So I'm just really enjoying this opportunity to see it from a different standpoint, different than work. So, and I appreciate all of your hard work that everyone does here. And so.
Welcome aboard.
All right, thank you.
Tim would know this better than I do, but I'm pretty sure you're the first female operator we've ever had.
No.
No? Really?
Sounds good, but no, that wouldn't be accurate, unfortunately.
I'll take
The
second
best.
or
Oh,
third.
that's fine. That's fine.
Third, I believe.
Okay.
But first in a very long time.
Right on. All right, so
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 4, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, old business. Item 5A, adopt recycled water project. And the, oh, excuse me. I forgot that I had a request to see if we could move up item D, relating to the frequency of regular board meetings. Is it acceptable to the board to move that item to the front?
That'd be 60.
60?
60? Sure.
Is there a reason? I mean, of course there's a
Well,
reason. Can you share?
it influences whether or not we reconvene back into closed session. Because we might decide to, depending on what time it is, when we get to the end of the regular meeting, we might decide to,
Oh, okay.
you know, if we decide right now to go to 2 regular meetings a month, then.
It may impact how you're feeling about things.
Right.
Okay. All right, so we're going to hear item 6D.
This came out of the discussions with the Board Operations Committee, talking about the types of items that have been on the board agenda, the amount of items that the board has asked to be brought back, and how to manage the board agendas to keep them at a reasonable length, as well as make sure that the sort of day-to-day operations of SAM are not affected because we can't get to things because of the agenda. And so staff was asked to place this on the agenda to talk about the possibility, and I know it's not the first time it's come up, but certainly it has not come up in a while. So to revisit the possibility of maybe for a set duration, considering the possibility of establishing 2 regular board meetings a month.
I have a question for staff and then a comment for recommendation. from the
Okay, go
board.
forward and then we'll
Um,
listen to Rick.
Can staff handle, I mean, basically just about always gonna be doing packets with 2 meetings a month. And then the question for the board is, I'm only willing to do this if part of it is a policy that says the meetings won't run past 9 o'clock without 6 votes on the board to continue past 9. Not our standard 5, but the 6 that normally only a resolution requires.
Okay.
6 out of 8. Yeah.
I think the negative is there's an increased cost to the district and to the agency because we have to pay for twice the number of meetings. With the number of special meetings we've been having, it might be better, I think, to go ahead and schedule them per this item, twice a month. Then if for some reason it's quiet, we can always cancel the meeting. But, rather than having it the first Monday and then another Monday and then just throwing all these dates around all the time at random, we can at least fix them so we can, plan our lives around it. And staff can, plan their lives. Hopefully all the debates won't be on Monday nights and we can do that. But
TiVo.
I would say fine, give it a trial period, let's say 6 months, and let's reevaluate it.
And are we gonna assume that it'll be 2nd and 4th Mondays? Because I don't think that's in here.
I left that open.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say yes to that.
Yeah, that makes sense, 2nd and 4th, to me. Our city council meetings are 1st and 3rd Tuesdays, so getting it off that track would be good for us.
Yeah,
I
and I
don't
think
know, it would be nice to have the 1st and 3rd week full, so some of us could have the 2nd and 4th week without any meetings.
But, depending on what day of the week the month
Makes it
starts
easier to
on.
plan trips and vacations and things, because we're 1st and 3rd as well, and Granada's 1st and 3rd.
I'd be okay with 1st and 3rd, but realize that some months, depending on what day of the week the month starts on, it's still not gonna work out the way you want.
That's true, later in the week, well, that's
not a
always
big load.
problem.
So,
But the-
2
but-
regular meetings plus recycled water plus personnel or other,
Well, we could make, since there's an item that's going to discuss the formulation of the recycled water committee, looks like the recommendation per the JPA is that it's all 6 members. So it seems to me that we could build that into a second regular meeting, as opposed to,
That makes sense, I like that.
If you're-
we're now meeting as the
All right,
recycled
I'll
water
soften on this, but
It makes sense.
I'm not sanguine with 2 meetings a month for the regular sand business. We've been doing this for a long time, we've never needed 2 a month. And so if we're needing 2 a month, I need a little more than somebody wanted to talk about it to justify it.
Oh, when
We're
they were
giving it a
talking about the
spin.
plan expansion, they were meeting 5-6 times a month.
Oh, no, I remember that, but
Well, and
But we
We
need
have the
one.
strategic plan coming up.
the thing that I have seen since this being my first year on SAM is there are some items which I thought had a high level of importance that sort of got pushed through so we could get out at a reasonable hour.
Tossed to the next month.
Or tossed to the next month or the month after, and some of these things should not, it would have been better to have been able to say, no, we'll deal with this in 2 weeks. I think for staff, other than the time for the evenings, the workload is pretty much the same, because they're gonna put together a good staff report on any of these items. MWSD in 2002, 2001.
It was when you were talking about acquiring the water system.
Right,
And
so
you were
it was-
scheduling all these special meetings, and I
Oh,
said,
well,
why don't you just go
that
to
was
2 regular
what it was.
meetings on that?
Yeah,
There's
and
still a cost of special meetings too.
Right.
there is a cost of special meetings, and what we have done now is we hold our regular meeting on the first of the month, and then we discuss whether we're going to need the second one, but we always have an option for it. So it makes special meetings more plannable. And because there's a fair amount of time spent trying to get everybody scheduled to see if we can have a special meeting. So this way, it's within luck on our calendars.
Yeah.
so the big decision now is first and third or second and fourth?
Second and
You know, for us, it doesn't really make much difference because, I mean, does it?
No, I don't plan on going anywhere ever again in my life.
No, I'm just like,
It makes a huge difference with getting ready for council
Yeah.
on Tuesday and sewer and recycle.
so you've
That's a
got,
lot.
yeah, so you guys would be Monday, Tuesday, and Monday would be a good prep night for council.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Second and fourth is fine.
That's fine.
All right,
Let's
so,
try it, see what happens.
I move that we change the regular meeting schedule to 7 PM on 2nd and 4th Mondays, and staff will bring back a policy to be approved that says that the meetings are adjourned at 9 PM unless there's 6 votes to continue past 9 PM. And we will correct the agency's mailing address in the resolution.
Do we want a policy ahead of the, the interim sunset date? Rick suggested 6 months. Do we need
Yeah,
to do a policy before we
please.
actually try it out?
6 months, and we know December, we're not gonna have 2 meetings, come on.
That's right.
So,
And
6
probably-
months lets us have a
and-
run at it.
And not,
November, yeah.
Legal
and
counsel?
probably not November.
What's November
either.
look like?
Actually, I have something scheduled for next month to talk about what do we want to do, because both of them happen to fall what would probably likely be travel time or people on holiday. So the greatest likelihood would be October could potentially be 2 meetings, and then you probably wouldn't have 2 meetings until January again.
Well, let's give it a test on October and then set the 6 months from January to June, through June.
Legal counsel?
Well, procedurally, somebody should second the motion and then throw in amendments.
I'll second it.
Okay, there we go.
So what are the amendments now?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Nelson.
Well, one of the things I don't recall now, whether under the sanitary district law, you're supposed to set your regular meetings by resolution. The prior one was set by resolution, so we'll want to bring back a resolution.
The Health and Safety Sanitary District Act says by ordinance, resolution, motion, whatever, so it's wide open for how
Okay,
it's
so
adopted.
then the question is, I mean, as a general rule, you usually like to amend by the same method that you adopted.
That makes sense.
And that was by at least based upon what's in the packet, that was by resolution. I'm not saying you.
I think it's always been by resolution
Yeah,
here.
so,
That's fine.
so what the direction would be is
possibly could be is to come back with a resolution for adoption at the next meeting.
So would that be the place to include the 9 PM?
It could be, there's no reason why not.
Okay.
Yeah,
That way you don't have to worry about generating a policy that could be, you could take care of in the resolution.
And so while you're fixing this, the mailing address is
Yeah.
not PO box
I would
anymore.
update all of that. So, just so that I'm clear on direction, that if we go this way, we would not have 2 meetings in October, we would come in for our regular meeting in October, which would be the 4th Monday, or would we go ahead and do the second Monday as a special board meeting, adopt it there?
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right, we
because-
got a timing issue, because the meeting won't be.
Well, we can still decide tonight to schedule a special
We
meeting.
Right,
have a
the
special
special
meeting
meeting,
to
and-
adopt the resolution in 2 weeks, I
Right.
suppose.
Right,
The second Monday in October.
That's a
is
holiday.
Columbus Day,
potentially,
potentially.
What
depending
holiday?
on the MOU.
Oh, Indigenous Persons Day.
Yes.
Yeah, Indigenous Persons Day.
So perhaps we just have the one meeting in October, and then we set it from January, beginning, well, we would still do it beginning November, we just would not have the second, we would just cancel the second meeting, so it'd be November through June,
that work? Okay.
with the resolution.
Now, are you aware that more often than not, in a number of years, we've just outright canceled the the December meeting?
Yes, and I have an agenda item coming in October that we can talk about the whys and wherefores and pluses and minuses and all of that.
But, you know, if we're going to 2 regular meetings a month, it makes it easier because November and December, we would just have the first meeting only.
Right.
Exactly. Then we don't have to cancel and have special meetings. We would just plan for the second Monday instead of the 4th. That sort of
Yeah.
solves problems. Okay, I will bring that back if it is.
Is the direction sufficient without a motion?
Because I'm gonna be bringing it
Yeah.
back for resolution.
Sounds good.
Unless there's anything else anybody else wants to add.
So I have second and fourth Monday is the established, I'm assuming 7 o'clock is still the
7 PM
correct
is
time.
part of the motion, I think.
Personally,
Yes, it
I'd
was.
like 7:30, but I don't think I can get 5 votes for that.
And 9 PM would be the end time unless 6
Right.
of the 8 vote to extend it at that time.
And do we want to include, mention that recycled water project committee meetings will coincide with a regular meeting?
We could probably talk about that when we talk about
I
the
think we
recycled
should
water
say
committee
can.
meeting.
Can? Okay.
Yeah, when we, yeah.
Because I'd hate to have them push off important other business too.
Yeah, well, we still reserve the right to call special meetings. too.
Yep.
Right. Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I get the resolution correct.
Thank you.
Thank
We're moving back to old business, item 5. Item 5A, adopt recycled water project and related budget and create the recycled water project committee.
So, put your hats on for way back in March, when we had the conversation about that the JPA requires that if there is a new capital P project, that there were steps in the process that were identified in the JEPA that required the board to do a series of events. One of those was Sam to identify it as an actual project and identify a budget, send it to the member agencies so that the member agencies could determine which of them would participate in the project and approve the budget, and then have it come back to Sam to officially be approved, recognizing what member agencies are participating in this particular project, and then also establishing the budget and a project committee. And so that was where it was sent to the 3 member agencies. Of course, at that time, the budget was actually for fiscal year 15-16. That sort of slid forward to now a special budget for 16-17. And Montera and Renata approved them. And just recently, the city of Half Moon Bay did approve a variation of the project at their meeting last week. And so Sam has to officially determine that it is a SAM project, approve a budget, and establish a recycled water committee.
I thought the JPA agreement language only required a committee when it wasn't the whole board?
No, the language actually says that you will establish a committee of whatever the members are that are participating. And I quoted it here, that once it's been approved, the directors from the participating member agencies will constitute a project committee. So it basically, because all 3 member agencies are participating, all 6 members are the recycled water committee.
It's kind of like in Half Moon Bay when we were also a redevelopment agency.
Yeah, I understand that concept, but I'll have to go review the language later, but I thought that the committee language flowed from the potential for not all member agencies being participated, in which case you would have to form the committee.
I'd like to make a suggestion. So there's really sort of 3 items that are part of this recommendation. So there's
Yes.
the project. What is the project? Adopting a related project budget, and then establishing the recycled water project committee. So I would suggest that we deal kind of with one at a time in order to keep discussion focused.
I think that's a good idea.
I have a question for staff. Since you mentioned that Rhode Island and Montero already approved it, Half Moon Bay approved, I think you said some version.
A variation, yes.
Is what Half Moon Bay approved consistent with the existing Rhode Island and Montero approvals, that it doesn't have to go back to them?
So,
So we'll just add another couple
there is an
things to
issue
it.
here that we need to resolve. I think we want to state clearly from the outset that we want to move forward on this project. Our city council did not feel comfortable going sort of whole enchilada on the overall proposal. I think it was about 178,000 and change.
173,000,
173,000.
the SRT proposal.
No, you got the staff report 180, that's the number I remember, and that's the number we approved in Montero.
That's right. Okay, so, what the budget is right here in the document, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be, out of the PDF, it's page 36. Okay, so it's 178,411.
Which is slightly less than portions we approved already, so
So,
we've approved a tad higher amount.
Well, okay, but my question is more than just the dollar amount, but if,
I
you
need
know,
to go-
I don't know the
Leonard,
details.
could
of
you
what
let
we
Debbie
approved.
finish?
yeah, I'd like to finish.
Thank you.
So, we want to move forward. We expect we will get through all 5 tasks. Where our city council is and where staff is that we want to, you know, this is kind of a bad metaphor, but bite off a chunk at a time. So, we're talking about
You're the one who
tasks.
said it.
Chunk's not a good word for a sewer authority.
I know.
Especially involving fighting.
So we'd like to proceed with and fund tasks 1 and 2. And that was one of the main directions from the city council. We realized today that we did not incorporate Sam's staff time for work on tasks 1 and 2. And we did not include SRT's project management time, which is actually task 5. So we would want to go back at our next meeting and add money in for Sam's staff and add money in for the project management task. But council wanted to make sure that we understood the alternatives, the concept design for actually budgeting additional to proceed with an implementation schedule, CEQA. In fact, we might even, decide to throw in more money to do a complete CEQA at that point. But so we did not approve the 178,411. We didn't see this. We didn't have the staff report in our meeting. You should have had our staff report and our direction to staff for this staff report, but it's not included. So before you is the total amount and the total SRT 5-task, revised proposal. But as you're well aware, you two were at the meeting, we actually approved something less. We expect we will proceed through all of them, but my council only authorized funds for task 1 and 2. We are going to need to go back and add the money for project management and Sam's staff time. But so we're requesting your forbearance on that. That is what was possible for the city council. And we're happy to discuss it further. I know Deborah may have some remarks about that. We did have some other ideas that we wanted to pursue, and that was, so first of all, the amount authorized by the city council absent project management and staff time was $75,434. That's half of our total cost for task 1 and task 2. And this is probably more of a direction to staff in terms of contract negotiation and development, but we wanted the SAM board staff, CCWD and OCP, be given an opportunity to review the task 1 analysis prior to commencing task 2. So we're funding task 2, but we'd like to give everybody a chance to convene and check in and make sure we're going in the right direction. We also directed that the SAM board actually take an official action to approve the task 1 analysis and authorize SRT to move forward with the completion of task 2. And we thought we would like to help pay for a workshop, for Sam to, as part of task 2, educate the SAM board and the community about their analysis. Have a kind of a workshop, a noticed meeting, invite the public, just so we can see where we're headed.
Maybe an overnight. Since it's halfway.
Yeah, well, the location is fine. Yeah, we have no problem with that. And then we just wanted to make sure that some outreach to the community was included in the contract, so that we're actually saying, hey, we've got this important project. It's going to be evolving. It might even be bigger than we're thinking now. We want your input, blah, blah, blah. And that we actually ask SRT, as much as you might address comments on a DEIR, that SRT be required to address the feedback that we give them, kind of in a written report that says, we hear you, here's our response. So that was the city council direction. If that's not clear, I'm happy to answer questions you might have. Deborah, do you have anything you want to add on that?
No, just to reiterate that the idea is that we want to move forward. But we want to do it in stepwise fashion in terms of budgeting money for it. That doesn't mean we don't go ahead with phase 2, but after phase 1, we stop, we look and see where we are. After phase 2, we stop, we have a public workshop, we get public comment.
And we are budgeting for task 2, so it's not like, we stop after task 1. We're budgeting, allocating funds for task 2.
And we usually remind everybody at this time that we expect all of this money to essentially be fronted, and we will recover it at some point through the lifetime of the project.
Understood.
Through the lifetime of the project.
Well, I'm unclear on how
The
quick we'll recover.
25% design of the project, correct?
No, I mean, when the project is up and running, all of the money that we've put into it, we will recover from the customer.
Well, we're gonna need written agreements for that.
Over some.
Right, but it's a matter of expressing the intent,
Yeah.
which we've done at every stage for
Mhm.
10 years.
Well, and that is where I am very concerned, is that with the no-go, no-go positions in what happened they adopted, what if it is a no-go? What happens to the project? What happens then to all the money that Granada and Montera have spent? I haven't been on this board all that long, but it's been my opinion, frankly, Montera doesn't have a dog in this hunt, to use an old phrase, but there's not much we get out of it except a pat on the back and gee, it was nice of you to cooperate with Sam.
Well, you might get some recycled water. What does Granada get out of
How would we get recycled water?
it?
At
As-
$300 a foot to get a purple
As Steve
pipeline up
Leonard
there.
said to me once, water's fungible.
Well,
Well, you're talking about, what you're talking about is purely speculative, and while
Right.
I'm happy to speculate with you, I take a different view on it. I'm the one who went and presented to the Montero board when we considered 180 to get permission. And part of what I used to justify that to my board was, it's what we all know. There's, one of the largest employer synergies, I love having an actual reason to use that word, between the Ritz and the golf courses, both from employment and TOT, people up and down the coast work or know people who work at the golf courses and at the Ritz. It's an important employer, and then the TOT is so important to the city. And just to be real plain about it, the city is always a better working partner when it's got full budget that's well funded through that kind of revenue. And it helps us a whole lot when everybody at the table is not having to deal with some of the kinds of very challenging things that the city has been working through over the past few years. And so, to me, it's enlightened self-interest. I think it's smart business to help cooperate with this. From an environmental standpoint, it's a slam dunk kind of project. It's a good thing. Happy to be part of that.
yeah, I don't see like a no project thing, actually. So it might not be something that pencils out for the golf course, but I think we're gonna need recycled water in this community. So it may be that we change direction and on a variation of a project. That's why I mentioned at the city council meeting, I see it as a potentially an evolving project where we have a vision for what it might be now, but.
Well, and it'll be, as usual, more blunt than maybe people would like, but there have been times where Sam was working just fine for decades, and then all of a sudden, Half Moon Bay got took an attitude issue and said, we're not gonna pay for anything north of, sorry, Deborah, we deal with this, north of what's going on.
Are we
And-
dealing with it now, though? Or are we talking about
But it's a
past? I mean,
concern because it
Well, I'd
has.
like
Why
to
don't people
finish.
jump into here?
Could I finish? I tell you what, I won't bother giving any history for anyone. I'll just say that I would not want that to happen again if, for instance, Montero wanted to put a package treatment plant up at Montero for recycled water, and Half Moon Bay all of a sudden said, oh, no, that's in Montero, we're not gonna participate. Meanwhile, we've been taking risk to get recycled water for Half Moon Bay. I'd like to be able to see the kind of working relationships that we can trust in the future.
Yes.
Because I don't like dwelling on the past, trust me. But I also was taught very early that burned once, if you don't learn something, then you're gonna get burned a whole lot more. So I brought this hat so I could show people that now I'm speaking for Montero Water and Sanitary. And I don't, my ratepayers, really, a few of them might have some benefit, but the kind of money that Montero is putting out for this is a significant amount of money that we could spend on other projects. And so I am happy to go along with this, but I think we need to have some clear understandings about what's going on. I asked a while back for how much money had been spent just on project costs. I'm not asking for staff time because that's all blended and it's hard to come by. But just to see where we are at this point, because this has been going on for so long. And as people may or may not know, I was in business for 30 years and we kept very, and you were in business too, Deborah, you understand, you have to keep track of all your costs from day one on a project. You don't just sort of at the end of 10 years go, oh, I wonder what I spent on that. So, given that it's broken up into go and no-go portions, I'm very concerned. And yes, the language may say, the language doesn't say it can morph and we're gonna continue working, it just says there's a cut there. And there's nothing in that language that says we'll work to get Montero and Granada reimbursed for the money they've spent on this project so far if it doesn't go forward.
I have some thoughts, but both of you are.
I got maybe 3 comments. Months ago, in one of your letters, you requested or stated that you wanted Vivian to have control over the RFP process and the project. The Recycle Water Committee said, no, we're not gonna do that, we've got 5 agencies.
When was that? I don't recall that.
It was in one of your letters, one of those 3 or 4 page things that says this is everything that has to occur.
No, I don't recall us saying that, we wouldn't have said that.
Let's assume I'm right for a moment and I'll get it for you. Because I was very upset by that, that's why I seem to remember it. But the default of where we are, since Vivian is writing your staff reports, that's where we are. So I'm a little concerned about that because the other 4 agencies are waiting and, 7 months ago said we're ready to go and we're still not there yet. And we've bent over backwards for 7 months to include everything, answer all your questions, stick all the contracts in. We all hoped that Tuesday it would be done, but it isn't. So that's one comment. My second comment is, let's say I'm hiring a housing contractor. And I say you're gonna do doors, windows, siding, and a new roof, and a new bathroom, and it's $200,000. I get this wonderful bid, and I go tell the contractor, well, I really like your bid on the doors and the windows, so I'm gonna pull that out of your bid. And I'm sorry you bid all the rest of that stuff, but I'm not gonna deal with that. I only wanna deal with these little pieces here. I don't think that's fair to the contractor to say they bid a package and there's all these pieces that work together and economies of scale and everything. And if we're saying, well, we may not even approve this other stuff, that's not fair to the contractor. Second of all, third of all, if all these steps have to go back to the city council again, we've learned that it's 2 months every single time we have to go back for another change or get another approval. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And, the amount of money we're spending on this, I don't know how much money we've wasted or spent in time, opportunities to get grants and all this, fighting over, $90,000. And it just, now you're approving 75 or something, it's just, we just can't get the thing done and move forward. That's all I want to say.
Leonard?
I don't have anything else to add to what Catherine and Rich just said.
Would people please note that?
Special notation.
Other than the fact that I've been doing house cleaning, I turned up staff memos on this topic dated 2005.
Thank you.
I saw that. Scott?
I remember those staff memos. I mentioned at the council meeting the other night when I made some comment, I was a little concerned about whether what was being contemplated was going to come back and fit in with what we got going on. I'm concerned, Montero, to win everybody over, our approval was contingent on the other 2 agencies joining in with what was proposed, and that's not where we are. And so I feel obligated to go back to our agency and whatever we walk out of here with tonight, re-present that and get a reauthorization. I was contemplating all along, having gone through the proposals, that we would have milestones and check-ins, and as a team decide whether or not to continue spending. So what I was hoping would happen was we'd all authorize the amount, and then we would identify some checkpoints when we actually handed it out, said at these checkpoints, come to the meeting, present where we are, check in with us, and we can either, like we do with so many things, do a, sorry, in my business is a stop ship. Hold, stop ship, don't ship it, hold up. So I was imagining
That kind of
checkpoints
ship.
with, we're clear to continue or hold up while we reassess, or even change our mind altogether. I'm not, so that's not where we are, but that's what I've been imagining. So on that front, I and the city are actually of a similar mind, that we would have these checkpoints. Where we're not lined up is 2 out of 5. We're prepared for 5, you guys are prepared for 2 or 2.5 or 3 or whatever it is after a modification. I'm very concerned that we are trying to, after the fact, piecemeal or pick the pieces of the proposal, because I think Rick makes a pretty good point that, when a bid's put together, it's a package, and if you feel the need to give up margin on one thing, sometimes you move it to another, and it's bid as a whole. So unless it's specified in the RFP that we are going to select buffet style, I'm reluctant to put any engineering firm through something where we pick the parts that we like without consideration for what that does for their business. Sorry, I had another thought.
Well, while you're gathering that, let me just say thank you to Half Moon Bay for bringing this forward the way you did. Because I had picked out these numbers and I was very concerned. So I appreciate your starting the meeting with this, so that we know that it was picked up by Half Moon Bay, and you are willing and do want to correct what wasn't included. I unfortunately didn't say that first, I meant to, but I get so excited.
Yeah, I don't know why all of us, all 4 of us that were looking at this, just didn't think Cass Pie was project management. By the way, where's Sam's staff time? It was an oversight.
Yeah, let me add that it's been our experience working with engineering firms over the years here at SAM that whether it's written into the bid or not, we get the regular. I noticed the council had something in the staff report about there was nothing in there about them coming and presenting. That's been so normal for me. I wouldn't be concerned about that. That's a simple ask. You come and present. So that part, again, I think same page, just kind of coming at it, calling it out explicitly or not, same thing.
So here's one of the concerns. It's a technical concern. So the JPA agreement, has language about approving projects and special projects. So the issue we have is that we get the check-ins on the contract. That's really good. But the way the JPA is written is, if we approve this large budget, then you can invoice us for our share of that total amount, as invoiced. So it wouldn't be according to the council direction, based on the way that the JPA is written. So I don't know what we could do about that, but it basically says, once you approve the project, everybody's responsible for their, 50% share and your share, et cetera. And that would be in conflict with the approach that the city council preferred to take. I don't know how we.
Well, I mean, I would answer that with, you would only be invoiced if we actually did the steps. They're not gonna, let's say it became totally economically unfeasible to do this. Nobody in this room is gonna vote to move the project forward if it's totally economically infeasible. So there wouldn't be $180,000 bill to SAM because we weren't gonna do it all. It's just, it just ends. This whole idea, though, of having to go back to Half Moon Bay for approval of each step as we go is just, it's one agency in five that's demanding to do that. And everybody else is kind of working off called the Scott approach, which is, you know, there'll be some obvious stops, and we discussed that in the recycled water meeting. If all the economic analysis comes back of twice what Bruce is willing to pay, it's not gonna move forward, and boom, that's the end of the project.
There's,
Go ahead.
the other wrinkle, you know, I started out asking staff this at the beginning, but we didn't pursue it, but, you know, since Scott feels that it has to go back to Montero because it's not exactly what they approved, you know, that was my concern, and so I think that we probably need to do the same thing, and take it back to Granada. Now, I'm confident that Granada will approve it, but, so staff's gonna have to work with those two GMs to make sure we get the right thing on the agenda. And of course, our next meeting isn't for another 3 or something weeks.
But we have a meeting next Tuesday. You know, if there's an approach that can give the city council comfort, you know, that its interests are being met, you know, we can certainly, I would go back anyway to try to add more money for staff time and project management, but, you know, the issue could be brought back, generally speaking, you know, but my council and my staff wants assurance that we're not gonna just go full steam ahead without, you know, the current customer, you know, being satisfied or not being satisfied, that becoming clear, and we take a different approach.
Well, as Rick just said, I don't think any of us are gonna go forward if it doesn't look viable.
I don't wanna spend the money. You know, if it's,
I think the other thing that we might want to add in is to start looking for money for grants right now. You had said not that long ago that there is money out there. And as long as we've been working on this, project costs haven't been, there was a dip for a while when the economy was down, but they have been not engineering, but construction costs have been going up at a much higher rate than I would have hoped for, frankly. It's amazing how much construction there is in the Bay Area right now that's just eating up all the contractors' time. And frankly, my guess is it's eating up the availability of little things like concrete and pipes as well.
Don't need a whole lot of that for this, but.
Well, it's costs that are going up. So I would like for us to start looking for grants and loans now.
Optional task 6.
I do have a question, and I
And
don't know.
so my point is, we should be funding that now
Yes.
before we need the money so that we can cover these increased costs, so that we're not, I mean, I admit that I go to Safeway and I look at I was just there today, and I look at the prices on some of these things and I'm going, really? I remember when a box of cereal was $2,
Say it.
not $8. And under this project, we're going to be going through that, so let's start looking for the money now on Task 6. Fund it and get this stuff tied up, because as you have taught me, Debbie, you've gotta get in line, and being in line first is better than being in line last.
But you also need a project description. To get a grant from the state of California, you need a project description, you need commitments, you know, for funding. So you have to have quite a few things nailed down in order to compete for the money.
Well, it seems to me SRT's been pretty good about locating grant opportunities.
They certainly have done it for us quite effectively,
I've
for
got
water.
I've got a question, and I'm terrified to ask, because it might open up a Pandora's box, but I've been listening.
Go ahead.
I've been listening very carefully.
With 3
and-
women here, that's an interesting statement.
And I just have to ask, I mean, we've got, the project in front of us
Mhm.
is the concept that we've all signed the letter on, all 5 agencies have signed the letter on, is what we've been calling phase 1 recycled water, with one customer, 600, maybe up to 800,000 gallons a day on peak days, using microfiltration with some mix of RO. That's our current understanding. But I thought I heard and this is where I'm reluctant to dig on it, but that's what I think we're all pretty committed to doing, but I'm not sure, but I thought I heard you talking about maybe something evolving beyond that as part of this initial round.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't see us just not doing recycled water if it doesn't pan out for the single. We certainly wanna help the customer find, you know, recycled water somehow, but I think we're gonna have to look beyond, you know, one customer. I mean, I see this as an ongoing issue that we're gonna wanna
Okay,
be
all
part
right.
of and deal with.
So when we signed the letter with everybody else, I mean, we contemplated phase two and going beyond, and so I think that's something that we've been ratifying or affirming at every step. Because, I mean, we've got other conversations about, hey, you know, Montero and Granada wanna see some flow to the north as well, so we can't do that just with this phase one project. But phase one would get us, we've got a customer, he's got a budget, if we can fit the budget, he's ready to go. He couldn't be more clear, so, I just wanna make sure that we're actually, I mean, with all the numbers that we've looked at, I'm very confident that we're gonna be able to hit a number that OCP can handle. And so I want to operate from a position of optimism based on the research that we've had over the course of years where we see the prices converging. Where, I mean, just in the past year, we've seen RO go from where this board said, not really feasible, don't even include it, to, you know what, it has to be included, and because we see the cost feasibility of it. So, I'm wearing the phase one, let's get her done, 600,000 gallons with microfiltration and some RO. And I wanna say just like, really focused on that. But you know me, I'm plenty willing to talk about what happens after, but I wanna make sure we actually complete this project.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear their intention is not to go away or let it drop, like Catherine said, if this first go-round looks infeasible with RO or the.
See, I don't even wanna talk about if it looks infeasible, because everything that we've seen,
Yeah.
I will, and this.
We're just trying to be reassuring.
This'll be me being, here, let me put on an MWSD hat. With all the work that we've done over the years and looked at all these numbers and where all the analysis is on the financial right now, I don't see anything that would require us to go to 25% design to know that we have a successful project on track. With all the work that we've got in, roughly 10%, this is how most large projects are let. And this was, the technology 10 years ago was not turnkey like it is today, but it has been turnkey for a few years now. And we've actually got something where you can get a flyer with the package plant described on it, you put in an order for it, and it shows up, and it can do what it says it does. It's got a maintenance schedule, it's got training videos, the whole bit. So I'm very confident that the project that we have in front of us is gonna hold up to the additional work for the 25% design. And I would be willing to go to contract now with the work that we've done. I've been saying this since early in the year. Rick was saying this earlier in the year. The only reason we're talking about 25%, those of us who were ready then, is because that's what CCWD needed.
That's right.
And in a spirit of cooperation with our partner CCWD, I went to my agency and argued, okay, let's put some more money forward. Let's put some more money at risk. It's gonna be, I wouldn't have fought for that if I didn't believe that that was gonna be good money, not good money after bad. So I am going to pretty religiously stick to, you know, barring evidence from, we may learn something in the 25%, I'm open to it, but I don't see the likelihood of being very high that we're gonna see that we're gonna run into a stop. So it's kind of a positional piece, but that's the frame I'm approaching it in, which is optimistic based on a whole lot of information in that 10%, which is usually enough to go to bed. So completely open to, we've got a lot more water that's going out to the ocean that I don't want to send to the ocean anymore, so let's find ways to take all of that and do more with it. Which I think is, we're all aligned on that. I don't see any, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anybody's saying don't do more.
Well, you know, it may come down in terms of increasing comfort level with the council to giving specific directions on the negotiation of the contract. So we have a proposal from SRT. But that proposal is actually distinguished from a contract that we would enter into. The contract, I believe, could spell out the process by which we undertake those tasks. So if, you know, some checks and balances can be, you know, built into the contract for SRT, so that the council can see that we're, you know, we're pausing, we're assessing, we're doing the outreach, that we're holding a public workshop. Right now, the proposal includes nothing in the way of public outreach or, you know, public meetings or public workshops. Those are options. We actually think those should be, you know, part of the proposal, that we should be doing that as part of this process. So we, you know, because of the council direction, you know, we can't approve the project and the budget tonight. We could move on to the SRT proposal and perhaps give direction on how that's to be framed in a contract. But other than that, we would have to go back to the council next Tuesday, either to sell this approach or we have to go back to the extra money management. But what do you think, Deborah?
No, I agree with, because it's what the council has said. So.
I have a question. I thought Sam was going to be negotiating the contract, not Half Moon Bay.
Well, Sam is gonna be negotiating the contract. You know, I think we can give direction to staff on adding provisions that protect us and protect the expenditure of money. Potentially, we even add tasks, like a public workshop or something. But no, Sam negotiates that contract, so we're not gonna negotiate it, but I'm trying to find a way to increase the comfort level of the existing city council to move forward. They're willing to move forward with this, the current sitting city council.
Well, I am not prepared to discuss terms of a contract tonight. I would like to, I think that's more like a long second meeting discussion. If each agency is going to be working on this contract, certainly each of our attorneys needs to review it, and our boards as well. I certainly agree with public workshops, and as Scott said, we're used to them just, and presentations, that's sort of that's one of the things, as Rick was talking about, that's it, built into that complete proposal.
But
And
currently, they're built in as options, as opposed to being part of the
The
proposal.
base proposal.
Do we actually envision SRT doing public outreach? I mean, maybe I'm stupid, I just assumed that was Sam's job, and we would just do that. We're not gonna pay SRT to come in here and make presentations. That would seem like,
I mean, SRT and others have come in and presented their work. I mean, they
Yeah.
put together a report, they give it to us here. I mean, they'll hand us the piece of paper, but then we get a slideshow. That's just normal.
if we're doing like a big El Granada meeting for the community.
Well, then
I
our
wouldn't-
staff should.
yeah, I
should
wouldn't
go
envision
put ads in
SRT
the paper
meeting,
and put stuff on Nextdoor and go door to door and hand out flyers or whatever we think the right outreach is. That's something. Are you guys open to, you know, having staff pick up some of that outreach task?
Sure,
We have the outreach committee.
that's right.
Yes.
So I don't have any problem calling out, engineer presentations to the board at checkpoints. I think that's
Yeah, I
something
mean,
that we should do.
it wasn't clear that they were actually going to come and make a presentation.
I think they offered some nice to have options if somebody wanted to pony up extra money, but I don't think it's, I would not be surprised to see some of that presentation time in the hourly billing under the project management or some other slice of that, but I can't imagine that the presentations themselves are a big chunk of the time. Because
Yeah,
there has to be reports and.
Yeah, and I deal with a lot of planning projects, dealing with major restorations, and the proposals, always include, they're not options, we're having public meetings to take input, we're having public meetings to present the results to the, community.
Well, but if it's a separate workshop, for example, like Montero had a public workshop, and it was a big chunk of a day, and it's a big deal, it was a whole separate thing. Yeah, that's an extra, and we signed up for that purpose, because that was, if that's what you're wanting, then I do think it's an extra, and then we should talk about how to pay for it. I don't mind doing that, I don't think it's necessary, but.
But it's not part of the SRT contract.
No, but I mean, if we wanted the engineer to come in and, I mean, honestly, I would probably talk to someone like Roush Communications to do a big chunk. That's who we had do that big public meeting. There's a process for all that, and whoever puts together that process and runs that meeting, it's a different thing than somebody presenting an engineering report and answering Q&A. We can do that at a regular meeting. So I don't think we're opposed. I think it's a matter of exploring, okay, how do we do that? How do we get that? I think it's a matter of asking, and if there's some rational basis for that needing more billable time, we find a way to pay for it.
Well, and as I recall, one of the concerns has been how much this would cost, and our experience with SRT is that they take those kinds of comments very seriously. And so they have pared this down to pretty much the essentials. And I'd love to be able to talk about what kinds of things we're going to be adding in, and certainly workshops and this kind of thing. I'd love for Half Moon Bay to take the lead on it. I think we would we would be very enthusiastic about that kind of thing, because we've got, as I said, we've got some splaining to do on why we're even doing this.
Yeah.
Well, one reason we're doing it is for environmental reasons, because local creeks have been drained a little too dry, and
Well, folks,
it would be useful to restore the creek health, which benefits everybody.
we don't need to plan the outreach now tonight, folks. We-
Yep.
Right,
Right now, we
Yeah,
do not have a project right now.
that's right.
We have nothing.
Yeah, we have to go back to work
And
next week.
it's October almost, and we still don't have a project. So how do we get a project out of this? I don't necessarily want to take this back to Granada again. I don't think we need to, so how do we, what steps need to be done to get a project started? Because we're gonna be in November, then it's the holidays and nothing's gonna happen, and we pick it up in January. It'll be almost a full year that we've been sitting here doing nothing.
But whether we take it back to Granada, that's why I was asking for staff's opinion on is what we're looking at right now at this meeting consistent with, I mean, can it be reasonably considered to be covered by Granada's previous approval? Because Scott is thinking that it has to be taken back to Montero, and so if it does, then for the same reasons, it probably needs to go back to Granada.
Well, my understanding, to answer that, is that when Montera approved it, they approved it with specific requirements attached to
Well,
approving the project.
No, I made that motion.
Yes.
I'm the one who argued for that motion. I won the support 5-0 from our board for that motion. And it was that we would approve our portion of that 180, pending likewise approval from Granada and Half Moon Bay. We did that at the very first board meeting after CCWD twisted our arms into doing the 25%. We've been ready to go. I'm ready to go if one of the parties doesn't want to come along. I'm ready to do what it takes to get this thing done. So if I've got to go back and say, okay, Montero, I want to double up our portion so we can go do it with Granada, I'm willing to do that too. The failure to converge this project over the course of the past 7 months can't keep doing this. We've gotta converge it, we've gotta get going. We've wasted a year of the recipient's ability and need for this, ability to pay. And, I mean, there's no getting that year back, but we need to bring this thing
Yep.
to the place where we can go out. One of the reasons I was unhappy with the 25% business was the way these projects are conceived is you do enough to get to the point where you're ready to go, and then you go, and you've got this whole big package that is the project. And what we asked then was, could, for CCWD's benefit and comfort, take a few of those pieces, front load them into this new thing that we're calling the 25% thing, which no engineering firm knows how to do because nobody ever asked for it. And then people are like nitpicking about what's in that 25% thing. It's like, well, heavens, we're doing this abnormal thing anyway. And we're the ones asking for it. And then we're nitpicking on how it's getting done. And I want to throw the switch. So I'm prepared to go back, and what I'm going to ask my board for is approval one way or the other, but it's going to be, I want to get approval for being part of a two-party committee if that's what it takes to get this project done. Because it's untenable to continue down this path where we just cycle around and around and we're stuck in an eddy pool. And this thing needs to flow and get to completion. And I appreciate that it's difficult to get to where everybody's comfortable with this, but if we can't get to somewhere pretty quick, then we're going to have to do the path that's gotten it done before. And Granada and Montero have done that before here at SAM. We did a very good project together. We did it in record time, and we've got that experience under our belts. We know how this can work.
And if I recall, it was under budget.
I'm gonna call a 5-minute recess. If all can come back by about 8:12, appreciate it.
Okay.
Sounds good. Good, you do look pink, yeah.
Unit, well, the flexible scope is supposed to mean something then. They're an error code. It says deprecated, and it won't let me do it anymore.
Yeah, well, guess what? You're at risk of being in the deprecated bucket.
That means I need to do some research to learn how to code the program the right way. I mean, I know there's a way to do it, but I can't remember how.
It's just, oh, yeah, I got it.
Stack Exchange. So I'll send you one.
No, I have to look at one of my other programs where I've already solved the problem.
Oh, the air conditioning's too loud.
I just turned it off.
I tried, I'm sorry. I tried to get her back.
It's almost 9 o'clock.
What?
8:15.
I know, it's
Yeah, it's
almost
almost 9
9.
o'clock.
No resolution adopted tonight.
Okay, so we're coming back to.
But remember, a motion to adjourn is always in order.
So, Half Moon Bay can approve the project and budget, but,
You mean the Half Moon Bay reps at SAM?
right. So that means we can't move forward. Let's be honest. So, but we're willing to take this budget and project back to the council next Tuesday and have a discussion again about it. One thing we'd like to ask for though is the addition to the existing scope of some sort of public participation budget
At the end of phase 2.
at the end of phase 2.
To
Is that,
include in the budget the amount of money to do something like that, because that's not currently reflected in this project
But
budget?
that's easy to do. I mean, that's the direction, that's the one missing piece that I think would be of paramount concern to the
And-
council.
is that part of the optional task 7?
It's listed as an optional task, so, I mean, we certainly would do some, outreach around it, but we think it behooves us to have
Money in budget.
money in the budget, we could even hire another firm if we don't wanna have SRT do that,
Right.
but we'd like agreement that we need a formal sort of public
Okay,
outreach.
so you're talking about having SRT do it as opposed to SAM?
No, not SRT.
No, So it could be SRT, or we could have a separate firm.
Like Martin Roush or something
Martin
like that,
Roush.
a PR firm.
Or
Right. PR
with,
or
so
some-
some level of staff involvement plus someone else to help us
Yes.
Right.
pull off
Yes.
all of it. Okay.
And some
So-
money in the budget to.
So are you
that.
talking about the 178, or what number are you talking about taking back to the council?
We would take back the budget that's right in here, 178,411.
Because that's what we approved, so if
Yes.
if the council came along, then I wouldn't have to go back to Montero.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But
Wouldn't.
suppose that, when this comes back, maybe it's the second Monday in
Yeah,
October,
the October 24th.
that maybe to avoid having everybody else have to go back to their agencies, maybe it's a separate budget item for public outreach, something like
Yeah.
that.
That-
Streamline
yeah,
the
that-
process.
Thank you, that was, I was chewing on that.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that would be comfortable, but I think we would just rather go back and have this discussion over this existing budget and these tasks. Given that we're hearing from you, your concern about, check-ins, not going willy-nilly, but stopping after each task, seeing what we got, and moving on. So it just seems easier for us to go back.
Okay.
So that's what we will do.
So I will draft a separate budget for the October meeting to specifically look at what it might cost to do the outreach portion. So that would be beyond this particular piece right now, so that they wouldn't have to be done together. They could be approved separately.
Yes.
Right.
So we can at least keep this part of the project moving forward.
Right.
Okay,
You can amend the project description to include the additional
Yes.
task.
right.
I would propose you just
Well-
give the outreach committee $100,000 and let them do whatever they think is appropriate.
Well, and perhaps in between now and the October meeting, the outreach committee could meet and talk about what we think it might take,
Well, it's a compromise.
and then put that budget together and present it.
Yeah,
That'd
so
be a great opportunity for the outreach committee to
Yeah.
meet and discuss what ought to be
This
included.
would help my counsel,
Okay,
I'm guessing that Rick's comment was a snarky reference to something that happened with a past project.
No, it was just, I was looking for free money to go have a big party.
I like that idea.
So, anyway, this is what we're prepared to do.
It's a little early for a Halloween party at the sewer plant, but maybe next year.
you don't wanna bother for apples and That's just a no.
Well, that's
Oh.
Sorry,
two,
guys.
two things at tonight's meeting that in all these years I've never heard reference to here. Well, we're out.
Thank you for your direction.
That's,
That and biting off a chunk. Sorry.
maybe coming. Okay,
Went to
so,
the trifecta.
Having entirely too much fun here.
so we're going to move on to item B, but of course, again,
Yeah.
this will be discussed at our council meeting. Okay. So we're going to move on to item C, which is receive update on strategic planning process.
Yes, and at this point where I don't have a lot of update, as far as I know that Mr. Roush has been having conversations via email and phone calls with the various board members to try and schedule a date to have the initial interviews, which I think in the last email, he was hoping to aim for October 4th and try to get the majority of them done on that day, either in person or via telephonic. And then the next step would be to schedule the first board workshop, which would be more than likely on a Saturday. And I believe the last option that we discussed was either the last Saturday in October or the first Saturday in November. And so it would just be a matter of which of those dates worked best for the board, so that I can relay that to him and he could verify that his schedule is still open on both of those dates.
Can we do that with Doodle?
With
Doodle, isn't Doodle the app that we're
Calendar.
it's a calendar and you check off which meeting you can attend, and then the majority rules, and that's when the date is, so you don't have to do emails going back and forth.
When you say app, can this be just done on their website?
It's on their website, right?
So I'm not into installing
I think it's
everybody's
called
silly
Doodle.
little
No, you don't
app.
have to do that, you just go to the
Are
website
you
and,
replacing Rick Walter?
I think that's unclear. but-
Gotcha.
We're not-
Since
There
he's-
is no
Since he's out
replacing.
of town. Well, that is true.
In lieu of, and, yeah.
Are you
But it would be-
substituting for?
I'm substituting for Rick tonight.
But just tonight, it's,
I'll be,
We'll see.
yeah, we'll see.
At this point, I'll reach out to him. I mean, this isn't Sam's staff scheduling, this is really being spearheaded by the consultant, but I can certainly see if that's something that we can do, if that works for him. But I just, in general, wanted to see if, at this point in time, if those dates both looked like, you know, as long as it didn't conflict with anything in particular, then he can move forward with scheduling that with the board.
It's good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we're gonna be moving on to item 6, which is new business, and the first item is 6A. Approve and authorize the general manager to execute the memorandum of understanding between SAM and the International Union of Operating Engineers, stationary local number 39.
So based on the direction from the SAM board, the representatives from the union and the negotiators for SAM met and conferred in good faith. We had 11 meetings at various lengths, starting in April and commencing at the middle of September. The proposals were put into a marked up version of the contract and submitted to the union for their consideration, and I was notified that the members did ratify that contract, and it was provided to the board, both the marked out version, but for the public, it's really a lot easier to read it sort of in the clean version, which is what is included in the packet. And it is within the parameters that were provided by the board.
Okay. So this was an item discussed in closed session and worked on for many months. A lot of questions were asked, a lot of questions were answered. Is there a motion to approve?
I would be happy to move that we approve and authorize the general manager to execute the MOU between SAM and the IUOE, stationary local number 39.
Now second.
I would like a roll call, please.
Director Warren,
Yes.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Reddick,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter,
with great pleasure, yes.
and Director Boyd.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
And thanks to the represented crew here. It was, from what we've been told, it was a very respectful negotiation, and I thank you very much.
And I think the addition of Fran Buchanan as the representative has worked out, you know, beautifully. Really good move. Okay, so we're moving on to item 6B, authorize the general manager to recruit for a full-time accounting technician to fill the newly created budgeted position.
Yes. So this initially started with the analysis that I did of the accounting processes when I first arrived, and looking at utilizing Parsons, the dependency on outside consulting to do the accounting, plus what was being done in-house, and the software and how it was working or not. And so the first step of it was that the software that we had wasn't sufficient. We were using QuickBooks. It really wasn't capable of doing a lot of the tracking mechanisms that we needed, and so the recommendation was to move forward with the new accounting software, and then recognizing that there could be greater efficiencies and effectiveness if we pulled the accounting in-house. So we did do that, and looking at that, and the best way to proceed with that was to basically stop using or depending upon a lot of temporary assistance. There's a lot of startup costs with training people, only to have them leave and then start up again. And so building in an accounting technician, both for having redundancy for those particular staffing functions, as well as proper segregation of duties. So that was what was recommended in the budget, but of course, because this is a new position, the board had asked that while the money may be there in the budget, but to bring back this for specific approval as opposed to just automatically approved as part of the budget, so we are bringing this forward now for the board's consideration. We did meet and confer with the union on whether or not this ought to be a represented position. It is not a confidential position, so it would not typically be excluded for representation. And so we agreed with the union that it is also clerical, similar to the other clerical position that is in this unit, and that so it would be a represented position. And so the information that you see here is also agreed upon by the union, that if we were to move forward with it, they do not have a problem as it is presented to the board.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members on this subject?
I'm a little concerned. It was my recollection when we went with the very expensive accounting program that it was going to be more efficient and reducing the need for accounting. Why is this a full-time position and not a part-time position?
First of all, I believe it would be difficult to get someone of the quality and skill set without a full-time position. Second of all, in what we've observed, and Kathy can certainly speak on this in greater detail and technicality, that what we've seen as far as temporary staffing, that we're just not seeing the quality, the technical skills that we would need. And then we also need redundancy, because this position would be not only performing the accounting technical skills that are needed, but we would also need backup for just basic clerical coverage in the office, which is partly what that temporary person had been doing, that they had become dependent upon. So they were doing both. They were using the temp for both the accounting work, even though much of it was farmed out. We brought that in, and then adding in that general clerical support, putting it together, it really is a full-time position.
So general clerical work, does that require the expertise of an accountant? Or is that, seems to me that's maybe a different type of job.
Well, we already have a clerical position, but for example, when that person is out on vacation or out ill, there is no other clerical backup. So on those days when that person is unavailable, the accounting technician could help cover some of those general clerical duties, like answering the phone, processing the mail. That wouldn't be their primary function, but they could provide that. Right now, it falls to Kathy and myself to provide those services.
I understand that, but what are you paying an accountant and what are you paying a clerical person? Is there a difference in the two salaries?
The accounting technician is more.
Is gonna cost more, so why not have two part-time positions? I'm not talking about temporary, I'm talking about permanent, part-time. One is accounting and the other is clerical.
For the most part, the predominant amount of work that would need to be done is on the accounting. It would only be as a backup, and so it would be, the accounting work would be more than part-time. We might be able to do a 3/4 time person. I just don't know if we would be able to get the technical skill set that we're looking for outside of a full-time position. So the majority of their time would be doing the technical accounting work. It would only be in the absence of that other clerical person that we would need someone to do the general clerical support.
I would be interested in following your recommendation, but I certainly would like to see an accounting, how much time the accountants spent doing accounting and how much time they did general clerical work.
Thank you.
The accounting, you mean the outside accounting work?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the in-house new position, full-time person who is an accountant and being paid at a rate that an accountant charges is going to be doing some time, not the majority of their time, but some of their time, answering phones and doing clerical work for which they are overtrained. I'd like to see an accounting after 3 months, I don't know,
Okay.
of how much time they've actually spent doing accounting and how much time they're doing straight clerical, because I think that, making an assumption that you can't hire somebody for a 3/4 time job, you may be right, I don't hire people, so I don't know. But I don't like overspending money.
Leonard?
I find it incomprehensible that this is anywhere near a full-time job. I'm sure that GSD's assistant manager spends a fraction of an hour, every couple of weeks, or less than an hour a month on doing this stuff for two people, herself and the half-time person. So I want to see, before we approve this, for the current front office staff, a detailed bullet list of all of their job functions and an estimate of how many hours a month are spent on each bullet.
Anybody else?
I'm concerned that this would look to be as big a task as it is. I mean, Montero runs a water and sewer operation. We've got a staff that is not quite as big as Sam's, but in the neighborhood. And we do direct customer interaction, direct customer billing. We've got very similar kind of payroll considerations, and I don't believe we work with as many vendors as Sam does, so I'm trying to think this through. But it's hard for me to visualize this as a full-time position, and I want to listen carefully to what the general manager is saying, but I'm having trouble conceiving this, even with the description that we have, as something. We were getting all of our accounting done at $60,000 a year through a consultant. I don't expect to wind up paying almost double that to get the same level of service, even if it sweeps in some of the lesser skilled activity. It just seems. I see the benefit of trying to get off of the temporary staffing, but I'm not sure I'm seeing this as the solution.
Didn't Kim do all of the accounting and HR stuff herself?
It's been a long time.
There were actually, back then, there were 3 people. They attempted for, I believe, about a year to try and do it in-house with 2 people. And then it was at that point that they farmed out the accounting to Parsons. And I will tell you that not all of the accounting was being done by Parsons. Parsons was doing the higher level accounting work as well as the technician work, which is what we're proposing here. And there was still a significant amount of the technical work that was still being done by Sam, and that's where the temporary staffing was brought in to provide that. So it was basically the work that was being done previously split between 3 staff here at Sam when Ms. Solera retired, got divvied up between Parsons and a temporary staff person.
Wow. I would like to table this until we get what I just suggested, which is for Kathy, Susie, and the temp, the detailed list of responsibilities and estimate of hours per month on each line.
We currently don't have a temporary employee.
We don't have a temporary.
But the work is getting done?
There's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of work that's not being done because there's some things that just absolutely have to get done. And so there's a portion of work that is not being done because of that, because the hope was to not have to go through another training process with another temp. The temp took a permanent job. It happens. And so rather than trying to hire another temp and train them, the hope was that the next opportunity for training would be for the regular employee as opposed to the temporary employee.
The other option might be, though, to ask Parsons to do a bigger job, more of the accounting.
They didn't want to. They actually were trying to back down on what they were doing.
But that's Parsons. I mean, there are other accounting firms, right? that might take on the full accounting job. And then you're gonna you'll pay them, and then you'll also be able to hire a clerical person. It'd be part-time clerical person.
At that point, I would recommend waiting until we get through our current audit to see if the auditor has any commentary about the processes and procedures that were in place, and if they saw any reason. That would be a pros versus cons approach to what Kathy and I have observed on the things that were being missed by contracting it out. There were gaps
Aren't
in
we
services.
at risk of having bigger gaps by having work piling up?
Well, we are. If we continue to go down this road, our hope was that we wouldn't be
I
continuing
mean,
to
we're
go
counting
down
on
this
you
road.
to not let those gaps form, and I'm really concerned by what I'm hearing tonight. If, I understand the effort it takes to train up new staff, even temporary staff, but, and I understand how, a given specialist may opt not to step up to it if we ask for more. Honestly, I was surprised when I heard that Parsons was not interested, but I know that Montero went through a change in accounting firm not all that long ago, and we wound up with something that we're very pleased with. So I'm confident that it's achievable to find an accounting firm that would work with someone of Sam's size. So I see it as a twofold problem. One, that we're accruing accounting debt just in the pile of work, and if we're not moving forward on. There's something really nice about having an accounting firm. If it's not working out, it's easy. It's not easy, but it's easier to swap them out.
Okay, well, we have other items on the agenda. I'd like to ask for some concrete direction.
I agree with Leonard's comment about tabling this until we can see the workload, but what has me concerned is we've already got gaps, and this would be adding work. So I am concerned. One of the things, frankly, I'd like to see is perhaps putting out an request for a half-time or a three-quarter-time person who could do this job. There's a lot.
The accounting job?
The accounting job. There's a lot of people who are retiring who are looking for part-time jobs just as supplementary income, and but don't want necessarily a full-time job or working for a big high-pressure corporation. And
That makes sense.
so that might be the way to look at this, but when I see it going from 60,000 to 110,000, that's a huge jump.
Yep.
And as it was pointed out, there were some, at a previous meeting, there were some deliverables on line cleaning and so on that got skipped in Montero and led to some problems, and so I'd like to see I'd like to see us concentrating on how to, where to actually prioritize on spending the money. I think we need to get the office done, the accounting done, but maybe there are less expensive ways to do it.
So we're asking staff to do what exactly?
It's, my suggestion is, as a compromise in looking for a half-time or a three-quarters time person who could do this. And frankly, at the same time, maybe looking for another accounting firm putting out RFPs to see, Parsons won't do it, maybe there's somebody else who will.
But I also think that there's a problem with clerical help. You're saying you need more clerical help. And I
Well-
agree that temporary positions are a terrible way to go. I mean, it's great if that's all you've got it, but hiring somebody part-time as a clerical help might make sense too.
You have to understand that the reason we've had temps for 10 years is because the managers for 10 years or more did not like the board's refusal to increase the permanent head count, so they just kept hiring temps to circumvent the board.
Well,
That's an oversimplification.
I was gonna say, to support the previous managers, there are the associated accruing costs with, employees that, are mitigated by paying it as a, labor charge when the labor is done and you're not looking at retirement costs and other benefit costs. So I think it can be pros and cons both ways, but I agree, I think if we need maybe the thing to do is not to hire, is to look for a part-time accountant and a part-time clerical help too.
I still wanna see the itemization that I've asked for. Before I approve any new permanent staff, I wanna see that breakdown.
How difficult is that to do?
It's just more work to, you know, take away from doing the other work, but I mean, we could certainly do it, but, we would definitely have to look at bringing on a temp, because, trying to continue at the current level, without assistance of any kind is not, it's not gonna work. So if we were to delay this another month, before it could be considered, and then you're in the holiday season, the likelihood is we wouldn't be able to bring somebody actually on board until probably January, so we would definitely need to get clerical help for the next, temporary accounting work for the
Would
next
it be
3 months.
easier to put out an RFP for an accounting firm to replace?
I have some serious concerns with regards to outside accounting firms and the issues that we have observed. And I said I would like to get the auditor's opinion on any issues that they might be concerned about, so that we would be able to include that in an RFP to make sure that it would cover some of the concerns that we've seen. Just to make sure that the RFP is very clear, if we were to go in that direction, that it would satisfy any of the auditors' concerns that they might have.
That to me seems like an operational detail. Any creditable accounting firm should be following generally accepted accounting practices. We have specific needs here. I don't know, we did a lot to modify our process after we brought in our new accounting firm at Montero. We didn't have to spec it all up
No,
front.
we were very happy too. That was
And
a
it's,
huge.
I don't like the notion, if you were concerned about accounting controls before, not having someone do the accounting has me, well, concern isn't even the word. I'd like to see us to go out, get an accounting firm, and in the meantime, get somebody doing those tasks. I'm not comfortable at all having those things pile up. If it's anywhere near the magnitude of work that we think that an accountant would spend 3/4 time on, then every day's gonna, we're just creating a snowstorm of work. If on the other hand, there's not that much work pending, then we aren't gonna spend that much on an accountant. And to Lynn's point, I don't really have any quantitative information in front of me to know what we're working with.
Okay. Let's wrap this one up.
Okay.
Sometimes the experts that do stuff all day long can do it a lot faster than people who have a broader range of assignments.
Do we need a motion on this, or is direction clear?
Seems to me the direction's clear.
Can we reiterate, just to make sure?
Would you like to take a stab at summarizing?
Is it what I just said about going out to get an accounting firm?
Right, in the
and then
meantime, getting
Getting
temporary help.
temporary help in the
Yes.
meantime?
And including what Leonard has asked for.
Right.
Yes, in doing the due diligence on the responsibilities and the timing involved and.
I think that would be, I would hope there'd be a lot of overlap between that and RFP for an accounting firm.
In the meantime, hiring whatever temporary help you need to hire
To cover both parts of that, really,
to
right?
cover whatever needs to be covered.
Accounting, first and
Yeah.
foremost, but the other activities to fill out.
Okay, we're moving on to item 6C, discuss and possibly take action on draft board communications policy.
This also came out of the Board Operations Committee in discussing how best to provide direction to both the board and the staff on how communications would flow between the board and the general manager and staff, and especially outside of the sort of the formal process of a board meeting. We've got 30 other days of the week where we are not formally communicating, and it's beneficial for everyone to understand how that communication would work best. And so I found some policies. Some of them were through CSDA, some of them were through agencies that I was aware of that had policies, and I put together a draft policy for the boards to just start the conversation.
Yes, and Catherine and I, reviewed this policy and thought it was adequate to bring forward to you all.
It seems simple and clear, and I have no problems with it.
Most agencies have these sorts of things. In fact, they have even, bigger sorts of guidebooks on various behaviors, and we might want to expand upon that as part of the strategic planning process.
I think there's things in here that don't need to be in here. If I have a question that staff can answer in 5 minutes, I do not want to have to go through the general manager. And in the past, without naming any manager names, there have been reasons why I needed to go to the staff and keep the manager out of it. And so I cannot approve something that requires directors to go through manager for simple information.
This is standard operating procedures in cities and counties.
I don't
It's
know,
okay,
Leonard,
Leonard,
I don't
you
care,
can-
this is a small agency.
Leonard, the statement I think you're referring to is sentence 2 in section 2, starting with individual directors shall not interfere with or direct SAM staff.
Right, I'm fine with those words.
Okay, what part do you have a problem with? I think you might be concerned about words that aren't in here.
The tail end of the first sentence in the second paragraph in section 3. Individual directors may make simple information requests of staff through the general manager. If you strike through the general manager, I'll go with this.
But what we're talking about here, Leonard, is
I'm
like.
sorry, this is not negotiable, I'll just vote no on it. If you
That's
insist on keeping that, I'm voting no on it.
That's okay.
Leonard, I believe the intent of that paragraph, as I read it, is about where, say, I want to find all the references to the recycled water project in all the old minutes. This is not something that any of us should be directing to.
Okay, and that's not a simple request.
Well, you might think that with Google, it is a simple request. So let's just, for argument's sake, say it's a simple request. It's just a matter of compiling a bunch of stuff. It takes no brain power. You just have to know how to type into Google and paste it all into a thing. Just go with me on the example for a second. I think if the intent is we're asking staff to do work on an information request, channel it through the manager. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think if you bump into somebody at the coffee shop and you say, hey, I saw you guys down responding to a call the other day, who cares? That's not what this says.
Right.
This doesn't prohibit you from having a nice chat with somebody. It does prohibit you from directing them to do work. And I think that's a right and proper policy.
That part's perfectly appropriate.
So I think you're reading something into this that if we can talk about it and agree about it, this is asking staff to do work to provide answers to an information request, and we take that to Beverly, and we all agree that we take that to Beverly. One addition I would like to see in here, or at least have an understanding of, is I really would like to see all director requests be echoed out to all the other directors.
Yes.
I agree with
Yes.
that.
Yep.
It's just a really simple thing. It just keeps, and without, and this means the general manager doesn't even have to use judgment on, is this of interest? Deciding no, and then later finding out that Leonard's upset, that somebody decided that he wasn't interested in something. It's just we did it for years. It
Yes.
worked okay.
Could be in the general manager report.
And you know what it did? It brought a lot of business to the board table instead of on phone calls. And I really think it helped with transparency, and it helped us frame things in a way where it's like, well, if I'm gonna bring it forward, maybe I should find a way to make it interesting to the rest of you. So I think it's a good thing. This, I'm okay with this. I don't think it's a policy statement. If we find in practice that we don't like the way it's working, put it on the agenda and change it.
I think the other part about it, Leonard, is about transparency. And, the board works with general manager works with staff. And to have a board member decide to take a shortcut can put a staff person in a very uncomfortable position. And I think that is not a good policy or practice to have. And frankly, my guess is that if you were to be asking a staff person without informing the general manager for a piece of information, the general manager will find out anyway. So it's better just to be like you normally are and just be very upfront about it, very direct about it. And in this way, and I appreciate Scott's addition, this way everybody else is gonna know about it. And it's helps with our transparency and our staff relations, and those are paramount.
It's the difference between information request and a question.
I'm concerned about turnaround time. In the past, when I've had quick questions, I've called up, gotten a quick answer, and that was that. And as far as, some of the other points you're raising, Foley, unbeknownst to the board except me, Foley's policy was that anytime a director called up and asked staff a question, that they were to immediately notify him of the request. But the staff was still free to answer the questions that came directly to them.
No, it wasn't unknown to everyone but you. That was actually part of our policy about notifying all of us when any of us made a request. You can't, that was part of his process for making sure that got done.
Right, but the point is that you could get quick questions answered by staff.
Let's wrap this up. So simple questions, I don't know, take them to Beverly. You bump into somebody, you got a simple question, who cares? If it turns into a real information request, policy says you take it to Beverly. Is that what we're all understanding?
Yes,
Yes.
and I'd like a motion on this.
I'd like to move with that understanding and with the addition that all director requests be echoed out to the full board.
I see Beverly has a comment.
Oh, no, please finish your.
Oh, yeah, that's my motion.
Well, I was just gonna say, that last sentence in the second paragraph of part 3 where it says, if the request is of general interest, that's the one. Just strike that and let that sentence start with the general, it's supposed to say manager. General manager will report the request and results to all directors.
Yes, sir.
I would like to see the request, and then we can all follow up on the results later, but I kind of like immediate turnaround on the request. It provides the most transparency to us, and you know what, we may all have been noodling on something,
That's right.
and
And it's
it'll help
very
us go,
helpful.
oh,
Very
right,
helpful.
somebody's already on it, we'll
Right.
see it at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's good. So do we have a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Just a second.
Okay, we have one no.
One was a no.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
When I first read this, my reaction was a solution in search of a problem.
Okay.
Okay, the general manager's report?
You have the information, the one, and I wanted to just, I realized I had neglected to tell you there was a minor change in the MOU. There was a mistake that Cesar Chavez Day was reflected as May 31st. That was supposed to be March 31st. That didn't get caught. So just, Cesar Chavez Day that you approved in the MOU is actually March 31st, just for clarification. I'll fix that before we sign the contract or the agreement. There was a question that was brought up as part of last month's manager's report with regards to the flow information. I want to let you know that we will be able to bring that back next month when Kishan is here. He's been out, he's in France right now doing the presentation for that water reuse, where his paper was accepted.
He's doing a presentation.
Yes, he's doing the presentation,
Wow.
yeah.
Are we paying for that?
We are not. We are not paying.
I'd love to get a copy of this person.
Yeah, oh, yes, no, when he returned, we will be providing that information to the board.
Yeah, I want to point out though, that we're not just concerned about last month's report,
No.
where it was, showed Half Moon Bay as 54%. This month, we're at 61.9, 62.
Right.
That clearly, there's something wrong there.
Right, and I want him to have time to do that analysis and present that, so I will make sure that we are able to respond to that at the October meeting.
Right.
And then there was also a question with regards to the collection system hours, and whether or not Montera's hours were, one, correct, and two, if they were a reflection of a shortage of time spent in Montera, because the rolling 12 months, it definitely appeared that Montera was not getting the percentage of hours that it should be getting, so that all of its lines are cleaned annually. And that was definitely a concern, and Director Boyd pointed that out, and we wanted to provide the information in response to that. And part of the issue is there was a change in how the scheduling was being done, specifically at the request of Montera, which was up through calendar year 2015. A majority of the work for Montera was being done sort of front-loading the year, so that about 80% of the line cleaning was being done by May. And then for the rest of the year, there was not nearly that much time being spent in Montera. So when you see the rolling 12, depending on which of the months you're looking at, it could look as if something was being missed. The request was made basically in December that SAM have a presence in all of the member agencies all year long, so that it wasn't just in 3 or 4 months, it was all in Montera, and then Montera got nothing for the other 6 or 7 months out of the year, and then same thing would happen with Grenada, and then Half Moon Bay was sort of throughout the year just because of the sheer volume. And so we did start in January of this year, dividing it by 12 months as opposed to it just being 4 or 5 months in Montera. And so it didn't get put into this monthly report, but we're going to change the monthly report so that it more accurately reflects that. But I do have the information, side-by-side comparison for calendar year to calendar year, and I think you can see where that change has had an impact and where SAM is right now. And so I certainly want to do that in response to that request for information, and I have that here so that you can see that. And this is just the Montera side. I can certainly make sure that we do that for each of the member agencies.
It wasn't that many years ago that we had this exact discussion here.
Well,
So the question is,
She's in her first year, so let's
Yeah.
not worry too much about that. What we wanted to do is find out, one, were the numbers reported correct or not? And then if they were, what's the story? And then beyond that, what are we doing to make sure that we get 100% clean before the rains start, which is like any day now.
and make sure that this new policy stays in place over the years.
Right, and so as you can see for 2015, we did about 141,000 feet, which would be the normal feet plus the hot spots, which of course increase the regular cleaning schedule. And because this only showed up through July's figures, but as you can see in July we were just slightly behind because we were just at about 50%, but as you recall we were down a crew member for the entire month of June, and so we weren't able to get PSI up and running until July. And so because of that, we did have a drop in service provision, but we believe we are able to catch up. We're mostly caught up. We're just a little behind, but we believe that we can get caught up with some additional services to make up for that. that lack of the second crew. And we believe we will be on target, but as you can see, it's a much more even split month to month than it used to be. And this is what the Montera manager had asked for, was a presence every month, not just 3 or 4 months or 5 months out of the year, so that we would be seen and available in the Montera area all year round. And so that's reflected here. I will tell you that it is taking longer than we had anticipated to get the new collections maintenance worker on board. We do have a tentative start date for mid-November, and so part of the problem is we have now run through the board's authorization for PSI's cleaning. And so we will, in order to continue to stay up with cleaning and not fall behind, we will need to have some additional services provided by PSI, because we were not able to get the 4th crew member on board as quickly as we had originally hoped to no later than mid-October, but now it's looking like mid-November.
Meaning you haven't found someone to hire yet?
No, we do.
Oh.
It's the person is not able to start until that date.
Oh, okay.
And so that was a bit more of a delay than we had anticipated. And so we do not want to slip farther into that the potential for the rainy season before we can get those lines cleaned.
Okay.
So that's where we are. I just wanted to present that in answer to that specific question.
Thank you. Moving along, attorney's report?
I'm going to pass.
All righty then. Any directors?
I have 2 things which are actual requests. In going through random SAM packets from history and checking the recycle bin, one of the things I've noticed is that the monthly flow reports are all over the map. So for about the 100th time, I'm going to ask for the year-to-year overlay, and I'll send a mock-up. I'll get out colored pens and I'll send a mock-up, but the board already directed it, and I don't know why we can't get that report. I've been asking for it for years.
So I have volunteered to help out with that. I have not had the time to actually offer up the prototypes of that. So you might recall from, I believe, a meeting ago, we talked about it. Yell at me. And in fact, if you remind me outside of a meeting, there's some good chance that we can put together something and bring it back. Let's not yell at staff on something.
Scott fails to get
All right,
into
so the other thing,
Put it on me.
the other
Put it on
thing
my
I
account.
noticed,
I have a quick question. Can you guys just do sort of like a scroll, starting with the monthly flow report for year 1, and then we can sort of move along and see over time?
Moving along would be good. It's
Moving along
after
would be
9
really
o'clock.
good. Yeah, so let's keep this
I'm
really
just
short.
repeating that.
some of you may
We're starting
remember
to
that
go
once upon a
ballistic
time
here.
we got a lot of stuff in a separate envelope called board mail. And one of the things I found in the non-agenda stuff is we used to get the agendas of the managers' meetings. And I would like to start getting the agendas of the managers' meetings again.
Were there minutes?
I don't remember, probably not.
Well, I
Oh,
think we
maybe,
actually
there were
addressed that.
sometimes, but we always got the agendas. And so if you could, find a place to include those, or maybe just email, I don't know.
I think it's addressed in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
One quick report on LAFCO last week. The only item really of interest to this group is the grand jury report, which went around attacking the independent districts. LAFCO's response, everybody's seen their own responses. The LAFCO response was pretty much neutral from all not neutral, but let me say 0, because most of them were like technical attacks, and LAFCO's response in almost every case was LAFCO does not have the information required to answer this one, which went through the whole thing. But there was one, I think, significant for us. One of the comments was these special districts, they're a pass-through agency, they don't do any work, SAM does all the work, so you ought to throw away all the middlemen sort of thing. LAFCO came down hard on that and said, absolutely disagree with this. and came in support of the true function of special districts and stuff like that. So it was a good report from LAFCO to, where appropriate, defend all of our special districts here. So.
Congratulations to the LAFCO board membership. That's a shift in perspective, and I'm very pleased.
Yeah.
It was a good report, so.
Look forward to read it.
Okay, we're actually going to, rather than adjourn the meeting, we're going to reconvene in the closed session for the special meeting. So we're
Makes it
going-
all the more special since it's our second one.
Yes, it is.
Very
It's the extra special.
extra special.
Ooh, that was
Extra
good.
special.
That was
Secret
very
probation
good.
special.
It's the.
All right, this is starting to sound like a Big Bang Theory story.
Yeah,
Camera.
Oh, yes.
we're going to adjourn.
He is, he's powering down the camera.
Done.